shocking news of the century. Who could have seen Kraven the Hunter bombing opening weekend? Literally anyone with half a fucking brain cell could have seen this coming. Hollywood Reporter, box office, Kraven the Hunter having trouble finding prey, earns only $2 million in Thursday previews. This was reported back on the 13th of December, 2024. I'm not going to go into the article because we don't need to. So here is the article from 2 days later on December 15th. Box office, Kraven the Hunter bombs with $11 million opening. Moana 2 crosses $700 million globally. Now, I am going to stress this in the headline because I can't stand when this happens. Is that they compare the biggest success to the box office bomb. The people that are going to go see Moana 2 are probably not the same people that are going to go see Kraven the Hunter. Okay, two completely different audiences. In that regard. Okay, you're not going to be bringing, little Susie or little Timmy to go see an R-rated superhero movie that is Kraven the Hunter. Sony's first R-rated comic book movie, Kraven the Hunter, bombed in its domestic box office debut this weekend, hunting out only $11 million to come in third behind Thanksgiving blockbusters Moana 2 and Wicked. And by the way, Kraven the Hunter did not bomb because Moana 2 and Wicked are doing super duper well. No, the biggest reason why Kraven the Hunter bombed is who the fuck has heard of Kraven the Hunter? Okay, unless if you are a big Spider-Man fan, you're not going to know who Kraven the Hunter is. This is the same reason why Morbius bombed back in 2021. Who the fuck has heard of Morbius the Living Vampire? Again, unless if you are a diehard fan of Spider-Man, you're not going to know who Morbius is. You're not going to know who Madam Web is unless if you're a diehard Spider-Man comic book nerd. Okay, this was the biggest problem going into Kraven the Hunter, is that you're making a movie about an unknown villain from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. There's only two very famous Spider-Man villains that are mainstream. Dr. Octopus, aka Doc Ock, and Venom. And that's it. Kraven the Hunter is not even in the top fucking 10 in terms of mainstream villain appeal. Here we go. Kraven supplanted Madam Web to rank as the worst start ever for a Sony-produced Marvel comic book movie. The studio has rights to the Spider-Man universe, and one of the worst for any pick based on a Marvel character not adjusted for inflation. Reviewers ravaged the film, shocker, while audiences slapped it with a C cinema score. The pick also missed its target overseas, grossing a mere $15 million from $15 million from 60 markets, not 16, for a global debut of $26 million. Kraven, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson as a digital anti-hero. Kraven the Hunter's a villain. He's not really much of an anti-hero, but okay. Wasn't cheap, costing $110 million to make instead of an intended $90 million. Even if it was made for $90 million, it would still fucking bomb. Because I want to stress again, who the fuck has heard of Kraven the Hunter? Unless if you're a diehard Spider-Man fan, you're not going to know who Kraven the fucking Hunter is. And this was the biggest issue going into it. It didn't matter how good the Kraven the Hunter movie is. You're making a superhero movie based on an unknown character. This is not the 2010s anymore. Okay, you can't take the Guardians of the Galaxy and make them a near billion-dollar box office movie. The market for that doesn't exist anymore. The only exception now is Spider-Man, like the Spiderverse movies with Miles Morales. But those movies got established in 2018. Okay, the Venom movie with what's his nuts? Tom Hardy. I almost forgot his name. Started back in 2018, so it was still within that very healthy superhero market. But going into the 2020s. You can't do the same shit you were doing then. Kraven the Hunter is a no-name character. Now, granted that now the defense is going to come in the comments. Well, Blade was an unknown character until Wesley Snipes came along and made him successful. Again, when Blade was made, the superhero movie was still in its infancy. It hit the boom in the 2000s, sure, but you can't compare a movie that was made in the late 90s when the genre was still relatively in its infancy compared to today in 2024 going into 2025 when the genre has been so oversaturated with superhero movies that unless if you're Superman, Spider-Man, or Batman, you're probably not going to make a whole lot of money anymore. It really now is a roll of the dice whether or not a no-name superhero movie is actually going to make any money anymore. And there was an article here from Variety. I do want to sum up this video with this because I think this article from Variety brings up a very good point. It's titled, "Even After Kraven the Hunter and Madam Web, Sony's Marvel movies aren't dead." Well, what I'm going to say based on that article is that they're right because Sony wants to retain the rights to Spider-Man because obviously Spider-Man is like one of the most mainstream superheroes. Like I said, there's only 3 really big mainstream superheroes. You have Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman, and not in that particular order. But there's 3 paragraphs in this article that really sum up the issue that Sony has been having with these Spider-Man spin-off movies, with the exception of the Spiderverse movies with Miles Morales. From the Variety article, word for word. Sony insiders also fiercely defend the success of the 3 Venom films starring Tom Hardy, which have earned more than $1.8 billion worldwide, and that is billion with a B. The latest film, Venom: The Last Dance, has earned the lowest grosses yet for the franchise, $473 million, especially against the $856 million global take for 2018's Venom. But The Last Dance cost $120 million, thrifty for a superhero movie, and it improved on the international grosses of 2021's Venom: Let There Be Carnage. So there's really no financial reason for Sony to stop making Venom movies anytime soon. But Venom, built around a widely popular character with its own distinct imprint on the culture, also presented Sony with the false impression that audiences would flock to see a movie about any Spider-Man character without Spider-Man in the film. Quote, "All of these characters are famous because they went up against Spider-Man," says exhibitor relations analyst Jeff Bach. Unfortunately for Sony, they had a taste of success with Venom, and that kind of spoiled everything for them because they thought they could just spin off all of these characters. I don't think they realized that Venom could carry a franchise, whereas these other characters could not. To not have Spider-Man in these films was the fatal flaw. End quote. And that's the valid point. Is that what people forget is that the Venom movie with Tom Hardy has actually been built up since the late 2000s. Spider-Man 3 is the most famous example of studio interference, and Sony forced Sam Raimi to include Venom in the movie because they were wanting to make a Venom movie back in the late 2000s. So the plans for Venom, when Venom finally came out in 2018, the plans for a Venom movie were in place at that point for almost a decade. And like I said, there's only 2 really famous Spider-Man villains in terms of mainstream appeal. You've got Dr. Octopus, aka Dr. Ock, and Venom, aka Doc Ock. I think I actually said Dr. Ock, but still. Okay, you have Doc Ock and you have Venom, and that really is it. And again, audiences first got introduced to Venom in 2007 Spider-Man 3. As I said, who in the hell has heard of Morbius the Living Vampire? Nobody. Who's heard of Madam Web? Nobody. If we're talking about mainstream audiences, nobody. Who's heard of Kraven the Hunter? Okay, unless if you were a diehard Spider-Man fan and you were really into Spider-Man the new animated series, because the first season concluded with Kraven the Hunter hunting down Spider-Man and basically killing off MJ. At the end of that first season, there obviously was no second season of Spider-Man the new animated series, but still, in terms of mainstream audiences, Morbius the Living Vampire is a nobody, Kraven the Hunter's a nobody, Madam Web is a nobody, and this article brings up a very good point, is that Sony relied way too much on Venom and thought, we can make a Spider-Man movie without Spider-Man and people just come and flock to see it. What they're also forgetting in this 3-paragraph structure, it's probably somewhere else in this article, but this is the real meat and potatoes of the article here, these 3 paragraphs. What they're forgetting is that they're forgetting the success of both Venom and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales as Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. But still, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse does follow a Spider-Man. It's just not Peter Parker. It's just not Peter Parker Spider-Man. So again, like, where are the Sony Spider-Man movies going? I think with Sony, they're probably going to look to get the rights back to Spider-Man pretty damn quick. Basically end their partnership with the MCU entirely, because Morbius was strike 1, Madam Web was strike 2, Kraven the Hunter is now strike 3. They can't afford to make Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man at this point. The only person at this point that is benefiting from the Sony Marvel deal with regards to Spider-Man in the MCU is Marvel Studios. Sony is really getting the short end of the stick at this point, because now, again, strike 1 was Morbius. Okay, Morbius, the living vampire, could not carry a movie. Madam Web was strike 2. Madam Web could not carry a movie. Kraven the Hunter is now strike 3. Sony needs to put Spider-Man back in their Spider-Man movies, and they really can't afford any other option at this point.